Don't worry about math and science and all of that first. Worry about giving them the right attitude and mind to achieve the curriculum that you have for them.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who we believe that intervened in the affairs of Black people in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, and we further bear witness that he started us on a course of study that was bringing us as Black people into a perfected state. He wanted to make us over into himself and give us his mind. And he wanted to give us his mind to the degree that he said that we will be the most powerful nation that ever existed in this world, on this planet. And so he started us on a course of study and put us in a school. And this school had lessons that we call the Supreme Wisdom lessons. And in his classroom, he chose from among all of his 25,000 students, the one who was best suited. As the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us, he conformed to these lessons. He absorbed these lessons. And so he set him at the head of the class, and he put him over the Nation of Islam in his absence. And that person is the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I further bear witness that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as he went away to go get further lessons and further study, he set another one in his seat to take his place in his absence. And he was the best student and the best bearer of witness of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the bounds of North America. And that's none other than the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And in their three names, I would like to greet you all and welcome you all to the 6th edition of the New Educational Paradigm with the greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
We welcome everyone for coming in today and joining us. And see, we have a beautiful sister who I was trying to save as a surprise for the viewing audience on this most special day in our history in the Nation of Islam. And as you can see, we have Sister Traci C. Muhammad. She is just a phenomenal sister. But before we get into her introduction, and so now that it's no longer a surprise, what I wanted to do is first, of course, say that tonight I'll be leading the discussion in the New Educational Paradigm along with my co-host, Brother Troy 5X, and also our co-host who's not with us today, Brother Frederick Douglass Dixon. And so I just once again want to thank you all for tuning in. And tonight's episode, Allah willing, will deal with the ministry, the spiritual development, the ministry of spiritual development. And we want to focus in on the self-improvement study guides, the basis for community development. And that we want to kind of deal with that tonight because today is a very special day. And it's a very significant month in the history of the Nation of Islam. I would dare to say that today probably marks one of the most, if not the most, pivotal day in our history of the Nation of Islam, because it marks the 31st anniversary of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's More Than a Vision experience. And that kind of set the Nation of Islam on a course that is unfolding in front of our eyes even till today. And also today is another, not today, but 4 days from now marks another very significant date in the history of the Nation of Islam, which is the 21st of September in 1986. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave the monumental speech that ushered in the self-improvement study course, and he gave the speech in Phoenix, Arizona, Self-Improvement, the Basis for Community Development, which brings me, as we have on the screen, all praises due to Allah. I want to read a little excerpt before we go into the introduction um, from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for that speech. But also, before I leave that point, I want to also say that on September 17th, 1985, Ronald Reagan gave a press conference, and that same day is the day that he had the experience that led him, on this course that we're on today. And he's been, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, if you will, he's been chasing after the whole concept of that one more thing that he has to do, before he can go back to his father. And Brother Troy and I had the awesome opportunity to be in a meeting with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan dealing with developing a new educational curriculum based on the Supreme Wisdom lessons. And the minister made the comment that perhaps the new curriculum or the new educational paradigm might be the one thing that he had to do before he went to go see his father. But the reading goes as follows. On the night of September 17th, 1985, I had a vision-like experience in a tiny town called Coastland, where there is a mountain on top of which is the ruins of a temple dedicated to Quetzalcoatl. Excuse me if I said it incorrectly. The Christ figure of the Central and South America, a mountain which I have climbed many times. In this vision, I was carried up onto the mother wheel by a smaller plane, where I was brought into a room that had a speaker in the center of it. Then a scroll rolled down in front of me with cursive writing on it. And as I was trying to come close to read it, Elijah Muhammad spoke to me in these words. President Reagan has met with his Joint Chief of Staffs to plan a war. I want you to hold a press conference and make known their plans and tell them that you got it from me, Elijah Muhammad on the wheel. Then he said, you have one more thing to do, and when you have done it, you may come again to the wheel, and I would be permitted to see him face to face, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said. So that significant day, 31 years ago, marked the beginning of an evolutionary course of study. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been learning of the plots and the plans of the enemy, not only to destroy, one was Libya and Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, which their plans have already been hatched, and they've moved on Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, and they murdered him. So they actually brought that to fruition. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that the enemy had a plan not only on Libya, but he had a plan against the little nation, baby nation of Islam in the West, and that they were going after also Black people in America. And as we know, that we're seeing more frequently where the police are murdering innocent Black people, brown people, just in cold blood. And so we know that the plot thickens. And so this whole vision that he said that it went from Ronald Reagan all the way to President Barack Obama. So what is the thing that could slow down the enemy's plan besides a course of study that he put us on 30 years ago in terms of self-improvement as a basis for community development? So he's challenged us to make our communities a safe and a decent place to live. And so with that, in order to make the communities better, you have to make the people better. So self-improvement is, in fact, a basis for community development. And that course of study is a course of study that we should be having in our school institutions, and that we should be teaching to our people in the community, so that we could have continue on that evolutionary course in order to be perfected and made into gods. So what I would like to say about our very special guest tonight, that she has been working actually with Student Minister Ava Muhammad and Brother Rodney Assad Muhammad to reissue the self-improvement study guides under the auspices of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. As you've heard Student Minister Ava say on many occasions when she's given lectures. So that's why we have our very special guest on tonight. But more that I would like to say about our sister is that she's the founder and the co-owner of the Shearer House Publishing Company. She has authored and co-published her own book, Journey to Joy. She's also published Naturally Beautiful, the Force of Power of Being by student minister Abel Muhammad. Before you say I do by student minister Nuri Muhammad, and States of Consciousness, My Thoughts by student minister Rasul Muhammad. She is a theologian, she's a teacher, public speaker, a researcher, and most importantly, she is the mother of two beautiful sons, Hassan and Hanif Kushmir, and she is my sister and my very dear friend. I would like to thank you, my friend, for coming on the New Educational Paradigm today. And I would just like to give you the floor to say a couple of words to our viewing audience. And she's coming to us live from Phoenix, Arizona, as I said earlier, the city where this course of study was launched. And we would just like to hear from you, my dear sister.
Yes, ma'am. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is our exalted living Christ. And I further bear witness that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan Muhammad is more than just our divine reminder, but is in fact Jesus in our midst, if we would but understand. I greet you all in greeting words of peace and paradise by Salam Alaikum.
Well, alaikum salam, ma'am.
That was a lot of fluff on that intro, but we friends.
We are.
Thank you so very much for having me on the show. I cannot think of anything that is more important to the development of the human being, to the development of humanity into a God, than the beginning process of self-improvement. September is a very critical and powerful month. Of course, going through our history, we know that Brother Jibril Muhammad reached the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in the month of September. The More Than a Vision experience occurred in the month of September. The study guide, the initiating speech was delivered here in Phoenix, Arizona. For those of you who do not know, the history of the symbol of the Phoenix is a symbol of resurrection. And so all of that taking place in the month of September. So this is a very timely month and a very timely topic, and I'm very appreciative to be a part of it. I thank you, and I thank Brother Troy for this opportunity.
Thank you so very much. Well, as you know, we're going to discuss a couple of questions about the new educational paradigm. And the format is kind of like, you know, if our co-host or we have something that we would like to comment on as we're going through the questions, feel free to jump in and add your comments to it. And the three questions that we'll be dealing with tonight, as we do on every show, of course, is what is the purpose of education? And we would like to tie it to, of course, the self-improvement study course as an educational course in part of the new educational paradigm. We would also like to ask the question, what should we as Black people expect education to do for us as a people? And what should be included in the curriculum to fulfill your expectations? But before we go into that, of course, I would like to give way to our co-host, Brother Troy 5X, so that he might share with us some of his thoughts on this most momentous day. And I know that the study guides and the self-improvement study course is very near and very dear to him. And so I would just like, if Brother Troy, you can bring in your comments to in our conversation.
Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I further bear witness that the Honorable is indeed the exalted Christ, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is a friend, reminder, a guide, And as we grow to see and understand him more, we'll see that he's so much more. So once again, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
It's interesting. I'm the one that usually puts other people on the spot, so I wasn't expecting to say anything at this point. But one of the things that anybody that knows me knows that the thing that actually was the most empowering, as in terms of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad that were given to us, for me, you know, I think everybody has something that really drew them in. And for me, it was really the study guide. And that course of study of self-improvement being that which would empower us not only to improve our own position, but really to empower us to change our communities. For me, when I think about that, it empowered me in that, you know, whatever was going on or whatever's going on in our personal lives, is that it shows us that we have the ability to change that situation. That we don't have to wait on anybody or anything else to change our condition, that it's us that we're looking for. And we can never think of Allah coming and intervening in our affairs and letting us know that we are the solution to our problem. That we are the ones that we've been looking for. The minister has told us that our goal and our mission right now, or one of our focuses, is to begin to make our community a clean and decent place to live. I believe that the study guides actually are a platform that empower us to really begin to see that we can do that. That one step at a time, that once we make the decision to change ourselves, in truth, we've already begun to improve our community, to improve the country, and improve the world.
That's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Thank you so very much. I think we have a quote that before we get off into the discourse, if you could kind of read over it, Brother Troy. It comes from, it's an excerpt from the lecture that he did in Phoenix back in, of course, 1986. And it deals with this course of study and education.
Thank you, Sister Deborah. And once again, I have to encourage everyone to go ahead and go to store.finalcall.com, store.finalcall.com, or call the Final Call Administrative Building, and you can actually order that lecture that we're referring to in audio form. But this is the clip that Deborah was referring to. It says, in the den comes before the man. You must come through the fire of emotion before you can become a developed human being. You have to learn to control these forces within your own being to come from God himself. Before you can become the child wants gratification now. Allah says you must learn patience. And when you are patient, it shows that you are maturing psychologically. The child is selfish. It wants everything for itself. It must learn respect for others. The child must be tolerant of others. The child must learn to share with others. And so a child has all of the forces within that have to be controlled. That is why God gives it. It is something to make a baby and not know what to do with it. Most of you, dear mothers, are wonderful, wonderful creatures, but you make babies and you don't know what to do with them. Poor father, he is just out there. He just plants the seed and run away. He doesn't know what to do with life. You are given to the child, mothers and fathers, parents. We are given to exercise control over these forces within the child. And you must feed your child knowledge, guidance, as you exercise control. The child may grow into the proper use of divine force. Therefore, the parent does its job. It turns the child over to institutions that become the stewards of the life force. School is not school. It is the steward of the life force in your and my children. It is the other mother, the other nurturer and foster of this child and its development on the road to its meeting with God. Listen now, you have never been trained like this. Can we give the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan a well-deserved round of applause for that?
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Okay, with that being said, of course, let's go ahead and get started on this discussion of the new educational paradigm. So the first question that we would like to put before you, Sister Tracy, is what is the purpose of education?
The purpose of education is the development of the human being through education to become a God. Education is, when properly designed and when properly executed, becomes a guide for the person to go into themselves to discover what it was that Allah had in His mind at the moment that He allowed you to come into existence. What we have to understand, excuse me, is that we are all thought projections from the mind of Allah. We are externalized perceptions of Allah in His own thinking, projected into a third dimensional reality. And so the origin of your existence is in the mind of Allah. And in order to properly educate the person, we must come from a perspective of knowing that Allah had a particular thought in mind when He said be, and each individual person came into existence. And so education should take you into the root of Allah's thinking in that moment. Why was He thinking of Himself and decided to express Himself in the person of each individual? And so education should allow you the capacity, the guidance, and the direction as to how to go into yourself and discover the purpose for your existence, and then give you the tools by which you can live that existence to the fullest. And in that living a righteous life, a life in full alignment with Allah's desire for your existence, that produces what we call happiness. Because then you go into Allah's mind and you are one with the thought of Himself. And so there is no you, there is Allah expressed in you. So your particular combination of gift, skills, and talents are in you for Allah's purpose, because He experiences His creation through the experience of the creative.
Yes, ma'am. All praises due to Allah. That's a lot, huh, Brother Troy?
It is. It is.
We're saying that the study guides, the self-improvement study guides, can do all of that Sister Tracy said and more. So how do you see, we asked what was the purpose of education. So if you were to take the self-improvement lectures and, use them as the tool by which, we can manifest the gifts and skills and talents that Allah has put in us to express Him, how do you see an educational paradigm that is built on and around a study course or a course of study such as the self-improvement lessons?
Well, the first thing, in Study Guide 21, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan made it very clear that the paradigm is in fact a man. And when we look at the verbiage, the blueprint, an economic blueprint, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan tweeted earlier this week that Allah wastes nothing. He is the master economist. And so economy does not necessarily predicate finances. Economy is in fact currency, not in the sense of money, but the electrical current of a person's existence. And so the economy, the currency of one's existence, the electrical current that ties you to Allah is not wasted. And so the paradigm is a man. The blueprint to become a God is contained in a man. The man before us is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and in him is the blueprint. Now, self-mastery through self-improvement is what we are struggling with living, and we should never forget that we live with Satan. Okay? So living in Satan's world, we take on the idea of the limitations of Satan. So self-improvement leads to self-mastery, which then becomes the basis or the foundation for community development. What is community? Common unity. Common in the sense that it becomes familiar and frequent. Our unity with Allah, excuse me, it's not something abstract. It is who we are. Our electrical current of our existence flows from Allah. Excuse me. That electricity then becomes a spark in a dark world by which others are attracted to you because you are living a righteous life. So self-improvement, the improvement aspect of it is that we go into and we find what it is that Allah has already deposited in us, and we work with it to project it onto a third dimensional reality in which we live, and we alter the universe. We alter the universe of self and those that are around us by affecting them with an electrical current contained in a thought that originated in Allah's mind.
That's real. And you that brings something to mind. For me, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad told him that he was the lead wire for the electrical current from from God Almighty, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Christ, the exalted Christ. He's sending his mind through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he now has the power to crush the wicked. He has the power to, create weather patterns, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he has to have a wire that can take enough current going through it, which is a man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, in order to take that current and disseminate it out to the body or to the rest of the smaller wires or the wires with a smaller diameter. So, yeah, absolutely correct. And so in that, saying that the self-improvement study guides and that new paradigm is a man, so to study the man is really a course of education in and of itself.
Exactly. I think that the thing that is missing is that the educational system given to us by Satan is designed to suppress the God within.
Mm-hmm.
It is designed to bury you under through the process of intimidation. Why do I say intimidation? I say intimidation because if you approach a subject matter with the ideological stance that I cannot master it, you're intimidated in the subject matter. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in Study 21 speaks of the fact that we should approach everything with the goal of mastery. So the self then and the mastery of the self is possible. Allah destroyed the impossible when he self-created himself out of triple stage darkness. So in problems 7 and 8 in our Supreme Wisdom lessons, we are asked what is the weight of an atom that has been cracked into 10,000 parts. And in question number 7, or problem number 7, the question is asked, how much does it weigh? And weight and weighs are two different dynamics in two different states that must be looked at. That if you are approaching a subject matter with the idea that I can master it, how do we get the human being who has been intimidated and who is afraid to go into self to understand that Jesus Christ is not an anomaly, he is a regular occurrence in a divine world. So Jesus becomes the prototype. Again, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said the man is the paradigm. So the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they have suffered everything that we suffer, yet they still succeed. Why? Because the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan put it this way. So the only thing that will overcome white supremacy is black excellence, which is to say that if I approach mathematics and I say that I am mathematics, then whatever follows I am becomes who you are. So when I can look at myself and I can see that there are only 4 base mathematical operations that ever take place: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. I add to myself that which will increase myself. I subtract from myself that which will decrease me. I multiply the attributes of Allah within me, and it divides me from Satan's world. which is the core teaching of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that we must what? Separate.
Right. Yes, ma'am. You know, when you said that about the whole concept of being intimidated, which brings me to the English lesson number C1 that asks the question, why does he fear now that he's a big man? And he fears, because he's eating the wrong food. Mr. Louis Farrakhan, said that he is a tree. And he said, you eat from me, which you were talking about, the new paradigm as a man. And then you grow into the mind of him, and of course of the mind of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the mind of Master Fard Muhammad Allah person. So he said, of course, a tree, doesn't have knowledge. It is a knowledge that comes from a man who provides you sustenance, who provides you food. And so the new educational paradigm, being a man, that whole paradigm shift coming from a man, so that, this course of study, self-improvement, is, really divine revelation, as student minister Ava Muhammad would say. And we have to, bring this back out to the forefront, not just for the adults, but we have to find a way to craft the self-improvement study course for children, K through 12, as well as, of course, continuing education all the way down the line. We really have to push to put this set of lessons or course of study back out into the public domain in its entirety and correct it.
Yes.
And
I want to say that when we send our children to school, from pre-birth all the way through adulthood, what we have to understand is that each subject that we are looking at is an externalized aspect of the human being. By that, I mean that if you look, Mr. Muhammad cracks one atom into 10,000 parts. We are taught that it took 10,000 parts in the darkness to make up the one. That one becomes Allah. So when we look at the different subjects, from anatomy to astrophysics to history, all of that is the externalized aspect of the totality of the human being. So as you are studying that aspect of the totality, when you master that aspect of yourself has been mastered. So for example, when you master history, then you can locate yourself along the continuum of what we know as time, and we can demarcate where we are, how far we have traveled, and where we need to project ourselves into the future. We can look over the panoply of our existence and determine in 25,000 years we're going to need more engineers. In 10 years, we're going to need more who have mastered jurisprudence. We are going to need more lawyers. And so in a balanced society, which self-improvement creates, the male and the female can then come together and they can say, we are going to purposely unite with one another through marriage, and we're going to give birth to children who, with a predetermined idea to master this area, because we know in 30 years, our nation, our world is going to require more of these people. If you go back in the Caucasians' history, roughly 25 years ago, they said that there was going to be a shortage of doctors. And all of a sudden, you had these massive openings in the medical field. Why? Because they are scientists. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad instructs us in Message to the Black Man to study them. They make no excuses. So therefore, if they are created as an experiment so that we could see what is within ourselves, then we must study them. Yes, as Sister Ava Muhammad has so eloquently said, they are soulless clones of the original man, but they are in fact clones. And we are scientists. How do we learn? We learn through experimentation. So they're an externalized experiment manifesting the worst in us. And Brother Abdullah Muhammad once said, we needed something on the planet to accelerate our experience. We did not have wheels before they came. We were still on camels and horseback. The white man put us on wheels. So they are not all bad in that respect if we learn from them. What can we learn in terms of self-mastery? Self-mastery, the white man does not make excuses for his failures. He does not waste time being upset about something that did not work. They learn from it, they incorporate that information into the next iteration of the experiment, and they keep it moving. As a people, we have to learn how to keep things moving along and not get stuck in an emotional state of bondage because something in our perception failed. When we can understand and master the study guides 1 through 21, what we will find, 1 through 18 to be exact, what we will find is that there is nothing that is inherently positive, negative.
Mm-hmm.
It is all neutral. It is your emotional reaction to what is being presented to you. And so when we deal with self-improvement and self-mastery, study guide 18, Allah, God, has emotions, but he is not controlled by his emotions. And one of the worst things about slavery is that they made us hyper-emotional, hypersensitive to our environment because we're in survival mode. We never come out of survival mode living around these people. So our educational system is very brief and very short. Why? Because we need just enough to survive so that you can fit in as a cog in their world. Well, when we talk about a new educational paradigm, then a new educational paradigm necessitates that, one, we understand that what we are in is over. And secondarily, we understand that in order to operate and be successful in Allah's world, we have to be educated, i.e. civilized, into how to function in Allah's existence.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Brother Troy, feel free to jump in at any time in the conversation.
Yes, ma'am. I guess one of the things I was actually going back and I guess reflecting on a lot of things that you said actually touch on responsibility. And it gets us and moves us out of expecting and thinking that the white man will, should, or can do what we have the ability to do for ourselves. And with that is that in Savior's Day 1974, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad actually began to push and show that responsibility. He said, don't blame the white man.
That's right.
You should thank him. You know, and that was really a push. Not that that was the first time that he spoke like that, but it was really a push of increased responsibility on us, knowing and beginning to push us to see that not only is the responsibility for us to change our condition is on us, but that if we don't do it, no one else can and no one else will. With that said, is that one of the tools that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan began to use as he began to rebuild the nation of China was the study guide. And there were study groups that were set up all around the country. And with that, of course, the focus is that same sentiment, self-improvement, so that looking at us as the responsibility. If you could kind of touch on the connection between that last Savior's Day, 1974, and the responsibility as it connects to, the study guide and how that fits into our educational system, or what that may and should and could look like. I know that's a lot in there.
Responsibility. Let's look at the word responsibility. Our ability to respond is what we're actually talking about. What are we responding to? We're responding to the activity of Allah in the time that we are living. And based on our ability to respond, it will allow us to do what must be done in this time. So in 1974, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made it very clear. He said, I did not raise you up to be mockers of these people. So in English Lessons 1, as Sister Deborah referred to, he says, why does he fear now that he is a big man? Well, in our early days, in the 20s and 30s and 40s, we would say of someone who is educated that they have become a big man on campus or that they were a big person. Why do we fear now that he's become a big man? Why do we fear now that we have all of this education, that we have all of these opportunities before us? Why are we afraid? We are afraid because, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says, again in Study Guide 21, and he reiterated thematically throughout all of the study guides, that we will not become who we are to become by destiny, which is little Jesuses, little gods, until we, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, have a true understanding of Jesus. Our true understanding of Jesus will allow us to understand that at the core of our fear is a misguided understanding that the white man is God, based solely on skin color. We have failed to separate because the idea of separation paralyzes us. Why does it paralyze us? It paralyzes us because we have been taught that Jesus is the Son of God who is a white man. So to separate from these people, to receive an educational system that will take us into being gods, we have to walk away from the idea that they are God. To do that means that Jesus is not white, but he is in fact a black man. God is a black man. Well, the fear comes in that if we separate from the white man, subconsciously we think that we are in fact separating from God. This emotional paradigm of survival, because we receive everything from them, is what holds us in a stasis. Kind of like in the Matrix, you stuck in the Matrix and you do not want to come out of it, even though the option is given to you to purposely exit. So when he says that you have to take responsibility, and the first responsibility that we must take is that we cannot mock them. Why? Because they're doing exactly what they were born to do. Which means in the converse that we are not doing what we were born to do, which is where that responsibility factor comes in. Responsibility leads to accomplishment. We cannot accomplish anything until we take the lead in our self-improvement. Hence, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as well as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, they make it clear that their job is to deliver the message, which means that our job is to internalize the message. It is to work with the message. It is to remove the dross from ourselves, and it is to go as high.
Sister Traci?
It looks like her feed froze. So as you were saying that we were coming, quickly up on the end of the hour. So as we wait for her to get back on with us, I guess, this conversation of self-improvement as a basis of community development is something that we need to look at, because the next question is, what should Black people expect education to do for our people? And of course, make us an independent people, remove fear from us, give us the ability to do for self, to go for self, to take responsibility for self. And that doesn't start once you become an adult. That type of education has to be put in a baby bottle. So that type of education would look like where children, as they're coming to school, they will begin to start learning how to master, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, that emotion. So those are one of the first things that Sister Traci said, the emotion.
Fear
is, sir?
Looks like we got Traci. Sister Traci?
Okay, we'll wait for her video to come back up and audio. Okay, there we go. Sister Traci, I think you're on mute.
Your mic is muted.
As we wait for her to work out her audio issues. In that new educational paradigm, our children need to deal with things like emotion, be taught how to rise above their emotions into the thinking of God. Of course, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in the self-improvement course that the knowledge of God should have actually preceded rising above emotions into the thinking of God, because of course, you have to have a knowledge of God so that you can rise into it. And so, as we are, so it looks like we lost Brother Troy. This new educational paradigm.
I was just checking to see if I could reach out for it.
I thought I was going solo.
No, ma'am.
Let's have a concert here instead of just being solo. But this new educational paradigm will look like when our children enter the educational system that is designed by us, for us, that part of what we will learn is how to control and master the emotion, so that as we face difficulties in life, be it difficulties that are external or internal, we would know how to, rise above it and overcome it. Looks like we have Sister Traci back. Praise be to Allah. Are you with us? Okay, there we go. So we were just talking about what we can hear you. And we're coming up on about 10 minutes left in the show. And we were asking the question, what should we as Black people expect from education, and what should we expect for that education to do for us? Do I
should expect
okay.
Rate us. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We should expect that education would take us into we were born by Allah to become and to do. Less than that is a waste of our time, which is what we've been experiencing several years in the educational system. But we should expect our educational system to liberate us. We should expect, and we have a right to help us to understand the God of our creation, that we would become gods ourselves, that we would be able to unite. Because ultimately, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that we want freedom, what is freedom? Freedom is the ability to think a thought, to concrete reality, to access the God within through the mastery of the subject matters, to become, to grow, to develop, which is life. And ultimately the ability to take our thoughts and see them animated in third dimensional reality is in freedom. And it is in fact.
Looks like we're having some more difficulty.
And in that freedom, we justify ourselves and we are made equal to all in Allah's creation.
Yes, ma'am. Praise be to Allah. That's an excellent answer about what we should expect of our own of an educational system, what Black people should expect from the educational system. Now, the last question that we have for you tonight is, what should be included in the curriculum to fulfill those expectations.
And can I just, before he answers, I just want to add another component with that question, is that we really want to look at what does that look like, those practical things that would actually be present instead of, you know, sometimes we get caught in theory. So just really the practical things, what would have to be in there?
From a practical standpoint, it means that each person registered, if your education
We have some problems with a degrading, probably connection. So you're going in and out?
in this
Perhaps what you can do is turn off your video, and we might be able to get the audio going. Okay. So Brother Troy, while we're waiting for her to get back with the conversation, in terms of, as you said, those who know you know that the study guides are, you know, something that you have fed off of in your development in the Nation of Islam. So if you were to look at adding those components into a curriculum, what are some of the practical things that you would see that can be implemented in a curriculum?
And I know you can help me with this particular lecture, and I think it may have been the lecture that we opened with, is the minister talked about, and this is paraphrasing, that before we introduce a new curriculum, is that we have to prepare the student's mind to receive it. And I think Sister Traci definitely earlier in began to talk about that type of mind, the mind of a master, and how we approach things in a way that, you know, it has to be the mind of a master, that our minds are conditioned and prepared, that whatever comes in front of us, that we know that we can master it. And what we know in our teachings that we've been given is that the black man, which also includes the woman, is a God. And a God is one who has force and power. I'm not going to continue, but Sister Traci, you're back on. We didn't hear much of your answer in terms of what the practical is. And if you do cut off again, if you can just go ahead and call and we'll play it through the audio on the phone.
Yes, sir. Practical application for it. Everything that we do must be exemplary of the teaching. Every educational pursuit, whatever we're doing, that's the practical application. We have to live the life.
Sister Traci, we can't hear you. If you could just call me and I'll play the audio on our speakerphone, because we can't hear you.
Or she might be able to turn the video off. I think the video is degrading.
Yes, so if you can turn off the video.
Okay, while we're waiting for her to return to the call, you were saying about the
It's basically, it's making and shaping us, even as our children, that I think in many instances we crush that thought and ideal in our children, that they can master anything. They're reaching out for everything. They're exploring the world. They feel this degree of godhood, that if they can see it, they believe they should be able to have it and achieve it. And as we said in the lecture,
we have Sister Traci back on. I'm sorry about stopping you at this point.
No.
Okay, well, let's see if we can go ahead and get her comment. Sister Traci?
Yes, ma'am. One thing that we have to do is, I'll say this way, we have to be the torchlight for our people. What is the torchlight? Everyone into the light, the darkness of our ignorance and the darkness of our existence. How then are we a light? We become that light by living the life of a righteous Muslim. That Islam is a way of life, and it is not a lifestyle, but it is a way of existence. And so when we discuss practical application, that's the very first thing that we must do. We must live the life of a Muslim. By doing so, we actually put the principles that we are taught into action. And by putting them into action, we create motion. And by creating motion, we attract to ourselves others who are of the same mindset and who are of the same disposition. And that way, it builds up the momentum necessary to change the dynamics that we are living in. And of course, the first atom that was in our darkness here in the wilderness of North America that got cracked was in fact the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And Mr. Muhammad cracked an atom, which is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so again, the paradigm shift is a man. By studying the man and seeking to follow his instructions and not following in suspicion and in doubt, but in fact following in totality and in true submission, we can become the practical application. Secondarily, there was a time when everyone in our community knew to come to a member of the Nation of Islam to get information. We have to get back to that. We have to get back to it in the sense that we are striving to be academically excellent. We're striving to know everything that we possibly can, and we are not giving our people information for self-aggrandizement, but in order to help them improve their lives. We must become the experts at everything through self-mastery and through the mastery of the subjects in our community. And by doing so, our people will respect us. And lastly, we have to act in such a way, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that he did not want importance among us. He did not want big eyes and little U's among us, which means that when one increases in one level of knowledge, that does not mean that we attack them with envy and jealousy, but in fact, it means that we give them the level of support necessary so that they can be encouraged to go further. But we also have a responsibility, as Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in Message to the Black Man, that one of us go and learn a subject, and then we bring the information back to the collective. We bring the information back to the group. And we find those in the group who are interested in the subject matter, and we share with them what we have learned. And by so doing, we create a unified front, and we create a unified motion by which we can, in fact, uplift the entire community. And lastly, what I would say is that we all must develop a very keen interest, understanding of the 9 ministries. Because the 9 ministries mirror the 9 systems of the body, and the 9 systems of the body mirrors the solar system. Therefore, we understand and we know that 9 systems functioning in harmony and in unity produce a body of knowledge and a body of people who are reflective of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which bears witness to not the coming of God, but the presence of Allah God in the person of Mustafa Muhammad, to whom all holy praises are forever due.
Allahu Akbar. That was excellently put.
Allahu Akbar.
Excellently put. And as it would time would have it, we have come to the end of another episode of the New Educational Paradigm. We really enjoyed having you. We thank you so very much for your time. You've been an excellent, excellent guest. Of course, we would love to invite you back again as those study guides are launched, and we get reaction from the people, and we see our nation begin to develop and grow as a result of those study guides being launched into the public domain once again. We thank you, Sister Traci, for joining us. We thank our viewing audience for joining us. Thank you so very much. Brother Troy, of course, it's always a pleasure to work in the mission in the vineyard with my brother in this most momentous and awesome task of helping to develop a new educational paradigm along with our other brothers and sisters who have the same mind. And so, Brother Troy, closing words and comments?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I look forward, inshallah, to having Sister Traci on again. And I just want to stress one of the things that I'm glad that Sister Traci raised the 9 ministries, because in this show, the new educational paradigm, for those who have been following, is that our goal was to go through, and it's still to go through all of the 9 ministries. We've had Dr. Ridgely on, who represented beautifully the Ministry of Agriculture. We've had Brother Torrey Muhammad right here in Chicago, who has represented the trade and commerce and business. We've had Brother Timothy Muhammad, who represented science and technology. We had Brother Imam Sultan Rahman, who represented the ministry, the spiritual ministry, the 10th ministry. And of course, you know, we have once again is that we saw the importance that that component has to be present, the spiritual component, and we can't deal with it enough. So we wanted to bring back again and have the feminine side to represent again, dealing with the spiritual component, of course, those study guides. So we definitely look forward to seeing you all on the next episode. Please subscribe to the channel. And thank you once again for joining us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum salam.